The Grand Council Chamber on Nexus Prime was the most beautiful building in the known galaxy. Its walls were made of crystal that changed colors with the light of 3 suns. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of species filled the massive hall. They all came here to make decisions that affected trillions of lives. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the back corner. His chair was smaller than the others. The human section was always placed in the area marked for developing species. Chen had been coming to these meetings for 15 years. He was tired. "The council will now hear the proposal from the Zathri Empire," announced the speaker, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms. Chen watched as the Zathri delegate walked to the center platform. The massive screen behind him showed battle plans and trade routes. The council members leaned forward, interested. They asked questions. They nodded with respect. Chen remembered when he had stood on that same platform last month. He had tried to explain that human colony ships were being attacked by pirates near the outer reaches. He had brought evidence, recordings, and testimony from survivors. The council had listened for exactly 7 minutes before voting to table the discussion for further review. That was council language for "we don't care." Next to Chen sat Lieutenant Kim Park, a young officer who was attending her first summit. "Sir, why do they ignore us like this?" she whispered. Chen smiled sadly. "Because we're young. We've only been in space for 300 years. Most of these species have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. They think we're children. But we've saved council ships dozens of times," Kim said. "Our military protects half their trade routes." "True," Chen said, "but they don't see it that way. They think they're doing us a favor by letting us help." The speaker's voice filled the hall again. "The council will now vote on Proposal 7743. B. This proposal will place new trade restrictions on all species that have achieved spaceflight in the last 500 years. Chen sat up straight. This was about humans. Earth had achieved faster-than-light travel exactly 302 years ago. "The restrictions are necessary," said Counselor Vexther, an insectoid being who led the military committee. His voice clicked and buzzed, translated by the chamber's systems. "Some species expand too quickly. They take resources without proper respect for established order." Chen pressed his speaking button. A small light appeared above his section. The speaker ignored it. "Furthermore," Vexter continued, "these same species will be required to increase their military patrols in council space by 40%. This will teach them discipline and proper service." Ouch. Chen stood up. Kim looked worried, but Chen didn't care anymore. "Point of order?" he called out, his voice carrying across the hall. The speaker couldn't ignore him now. "The delegate from Earth may speak." Briefly, Chen walked down to the speaking floor. He moved slowly, letting the silence build. Every eye in the chamber watched him. "Let me understand this correctly," he said. "You want to restrict our trade, limit our growth, and take more of our resources. At the same time, you want us to send more of our people to die protecting your space. Do I have that right?" "The human delegate oversimplifies," Vexter said. "This is for the good of galactic stability." "Stability," Chen repeated. He pulled out his data pad. "In the last 10 years, human forces have responded to 847 distress calls in council space. We've saved 14,000 council citizens. We've stopped 23 major pirate operations. All while you've denied us full council membership because we're too young and aggressive." "Your species' history speaks for itself," another counselor said. "You had 2 world wars before you even left your planet, and we learned from them," Chen said. "We grew, we changed." "Isn't that what you're supposed to do?" "Learn and grow." Vexter's mandibles clicked with what the translator called amusement. "Perhaps if humans weren't so naturally aggressive, you wouldn't attract such problems. The pirates attack your colonies because they sense weakness disguised as strength." The chamber fell silent. Every human delegate felt those words like a physical blow. Chen stood very still. He had prepared speeches for this moment. He had practiced diplomatic responses. But now, looking at the faces of beings who would never see humans as equals, he realized something. The speeches didn't matter. The evidence didn't matter. Nothing would ever matter to them. "We're done here," Chen said quietly. "Excuse me?" The speaker said, I said we're done. Chun's voice was louder now. Lieutenant Kim, send the signal. All human delegates are to begin immediate evacuation procedures. Kim looked shocked. Sir, do it, Lieutenant. That's an order. Out. Around the chamber, human delegates stood up. They began packing their materials. 300 years of carefully organized files, proposals, and treaties were gathered into cases. Ambassador Chen, you cannot simply leave, the speaker said. This is a tantrum unworthy of. We are not throwing a tantrum, Chen interrupted. We are making a choice. For 300 years, we've tried to be good partners. We've followed your rules. We've accepted insults. We've died protecting your people while you called us aggressive. We're finished, Vexter laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. You need us, human. You need council trade, council protection, council approval. Chen stopped at the chamber door. He turned back one last time. You have 30 standard days to remove all council presence from human-claimed space. Every station, every ship, every citizen. After that, we will consider you trespassers, and we will respond accordingly. You wouldn't dare, Vexler said. Try us, Chen said. You called us aggressive. Maybe it's time we stopped proving you wrong. Human delegates walked out. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in confused conversation. Some species laughed. Others looked worried. Most simply didn't understand what had just happened, but they would learn. Soon enough, they would all learn. As Chen walked through the crystal corridors toward the human ships, Kim caught up to him. Sir, did we just start a war? No, Lieutenant, Chen said. We just stopped fighting one. The war was always there. We were just too polite to notice. The human ships lifted off from Nexus Prime that evening. They left behind 3 centuries of trying, 3 centuries of hoping, 3 centuries of believing that respect could be earned through good deeds alone. Chen watched the planet shrink in the viewport. Send a message to Earth, he told the communications officer. Tell them we're coming home. Tell them the great experiment in galactic diplomacy is over. What happens now? Kim asked. Chen smiled, but his eyes were sad. Now we find out if they can survive without us. I hope they can. I really do. But I don't think they will. The human fleet turned toward Earth. Behind them, the greatest civilization in the galaxy continued its meetings, unaware that everything was about to change. Part 2. The Exodus captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UHSF Vigilant watching the stars. Her ship was one of 50 human vessels stationed in the outer reaches, the wild frontier of Council space. For 12 years, her fleet had protected Council mining operations, trade convoys, and research stations. Captain, we're receiving the recall order from Earth, her communications officer said. All human military forces are to return home immediately. Sarah had been expecting this. News of Ambassador Chen's walkout had reached every human ship within hours. Acknowledge the order. Begin preparation for departure. We leave in 72 hours, Captain. Her second officer, Commander Roth, looked up from his station. What about the Council facilities? We have agreements to protect them. Agreements, Sarah corrected. Those ended when they decided to treat us like servants instead of partners. She walked to the observation window. Below, on the asteroid mining station, she could see Council workers going about their daily tasks. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, 3 Council delegates arrived on the Vigilant. They were led by Security Director Krathix, a reptilian being with green scales and cold yellow eyes. Captain Okonkwo, Krathix said as he entered her office. There must be some misunderstanding. Your fleet cannot simply abandon your posts. Sarah gestured for them to sit. There's no misunderstanding, Director. Our government has recalled us. We're going home. But the pirates, one of the other delegates said. Without your patrols, they will, yes. They probably will, Sarah said calmly. That's unfortunate. I suggest you contact your own military forces. Krathix's eyes narrowed. We have a contract. Sarah pulled up a holographic document. This contract? Section 7. Paragraph 3. This agreement is contingent on mutual respect and cooperation between the Galactic Council and the Human Federation. You voted yesterday to restrict our trade while demanding more of our service. That's not cooperation. That's exploitation. You're being emotional, Krathik said. This is not how civilized species behave. For the first time, Sarah's calm expression changed. Director, let me be very clear. For 12 years, I've watched my people die protecting your interests. We've lost good men and women fighting pirates that attack Council space. And every time we asked for help, for resources, for simple recognition, we were told we were too young, too aggressive, too human. We're not being emotional. We're being rational. This relationship benefits you far more than it benefits us. You need Council technology, another delegate said. We needed it 100 years ago, Sarah replied. Now, we make most of it better than you do. You just never noticed because you were too busy feeling superior. Krathik stood up. The Council will remember this betrayal. So will we, Sarah said. That's the point. After they left, Commander Roth approached. Captain, do you think they'll be okay? Sarah looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed known pirate positions. They were everywhere, held back only by human patrol patterns. Honestly? No, but maybe that's what they need to learn. 2 weeks later, the first disaster struck. The trading vessel Prosperity, a massive Council cargo ship, was traveling through the Kepler corridor. It was a route that human ships had patrolled for 50 years. Now it was empty. The void. Raiders hit the Prosperity at dawn. They were a confederation of pirate clans that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. For the last 80 years, however, it had been quiet in Council space. That was because humans had been hunting them. On Nexus Prime, Krathix received the distress call. Send our rapid response fleet, he ordered. His aide looked uncomfortable. Sir, our nearest battle group is 4 days away. They request human assistance. No. Krathix slammed his fist on the desk. We do not crawl back to them. Send our ships. The Council fleet arrived 5 days later. The Prosperity was a burning wreck. 300 Council citizens were dead. The cargo, worth billions, was gone. It was the first attack. It would not be the last. On Earth, Ambassador Chen sat in a quiet garden. He was no longer giving speeches or attending meetings. He had done his part. Now he waited. A young reporter found him there. Ambassador Chen, do you feel responsible for the deaths in the Kepler corridor? Chen looked at her for a long moment. I feel sad, he said, but not responsible. We warned them for decades that the pirates were growing stronger. We sent reports. We showed evidence. They ignored it all. You can't save people who refuse to see the danger. What do you think will happen? I think they'll learn, Chen said. The hard way, unfortunately. But sometimes that's the only way lessons stick. Far from Earth, in the dark spaces between stars, something was moving. The Void Raiders had been waiting for this moment for years. They had watched as humans systematically destroyed their bases, captured their leaders, and disrupted their operations. The Raiders' leader, a scarred veteran called Kexeron, studied the intelligence reports. The humans are gone? Yes, Lord, his scout said. All human military vessels have withdrawn to their own space. Kexeron's 3 eyes gleamed. Then the galaxy is ours again. Gather the clans. Tell them the hunting season has begun. Within days, raider attacks increased across Council space. Trade routes that had been safe for generations became death traps. Mining colonies called for help that arrived too late or not at all. Research stations went silent. On Nexus Prime, the Council held emergency sessions. Counselor Vexter stood before his peers. This is temporary chaos, he insisted. Our forces are adapting. We do not need the humans. But in the back rooms and private chambers, other conversations were happening. Younger counselors pulled up old records. They found something disturbing. Analyst Lyra, a bird-like being with bright blue feathers, worked late into the night. She had been friends with human researchers before they left. They had seemed sad, but not surprised by the exodus. Now she understood why. the records showed a pattern. Every time pirates grew bold, human ships appeared. Every time a raider base was built, humans found and destroyed it. Every time the council felt safe, it was because humans were doing the dangerous work in the shadows. They were protecting us, Lyra whispered to herself, and we never even said thank you. She ran to her supervisor with the data. Sir, we need to contact Earth. We need their help. Her supervisor, an elder statesman, shook his head. The council has voted. We will not show weakness, but people are dying. Then perhaps they will learn to protect themselves, he said coldly. Back on the Vigilant, now stationed at the border of human space, Sarah watched the long-range sensors. The Void Raider fleet movements were clear. They were massing, growing bolder with each successful attack. Captain, her tactical officer said, they're heading for the core worlds. If they maintain this course, they'll reach Nexus Prime in 3 weeks. How? Sarah felt a chill. Nexus Prime held over 2 billion citizens. If the Raiders attacked it, the casualties would be unimaginable. Do we warn them? Commander Roth asked. Sarah thought about Krathik's cold eyes, about Vexther's mocking voice, about 300 years of insults and dismissals. Then she thought about the 2 billion innocent people who had nothing to do with the Council's decisions. Yes, she said. We warn them, but we don't offer help. Not yet. They need to ask for it themselves. The message was sent through official channels. It was marked urgent. With all the evidence of the Raider fleet's movements and projected attack time, the Council received it. They filed it. They debated it, but they did not believe it. Human fear-mongering, Vexther announced. They want us to panic and beg for their return. We will not. 3 weeks until disaster. 3 weeks for pride to break, or for billions to die. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which would come first. Part 3. The Unraveling, 3 weeks after the human withdrawal. The Galactic Council was in chaos, in the Council's military command center. Security Director Krathik stared at the tactical display with growing horror. Red markers covered the map like a disease. Each one represented a pirate attack, a destroyed ship, or a colony under siege. Another convoy lost in the Deneb sector, an aide reported. That's the 5th this week. Send the patrol fleet from Arcturus, Krathik ordered. It's her. The Arcturus fleet is already responding to distress calls in the Vega system. And the Centauri fleet is protecting the dilithium mines after the last raid. Krathik felt a headache forming behind his eyes. Then pull ships from the home defense network. Yes, sir. That would leave the core worlds vulnerable. Everything is vulnerable, Krathik shouted. Then quieter. How did it get this bad so quickly? Nobody answered. They all knew the truth. It had always been this bad. They just hadn't seen it because humans had been holding back the tide on the other side of the galaxy. Analyst Lyra worked in her small office at the Council archives. She had spent weeks going through old records. What she found terrified her. She pulled up a report from 15 years ago. It was written by a human intelligence officer. The title read, Growing Threat Assessment, Void Raider, Consolidation in Sector 447. The report was thorough. It showed how separate pirate clans were joining together, creating a confederation. It predicted their growth patterns. It recommended immediate action to disrupt their alliance before it became too strong. At the bottom was a stamp. Council review status declined. Reason, insufficient evidence from unestablished species. Lyra found another report. Then another. Then dozens more. All from human sources. All warning about the same growing threat. All dismissed or ignored, she found something else too. Hidden in classified files that she technically shouldn't have access to were operation reports. Human special forces had been conducting covert missions for decades. They destroyed pirate bases. They rescued captured crews. They gathered intelligence. One mission report stood out. 5 years ago, a human team had infiltrated the main Void Raider base. They could have destroyed it completely. Instead, they chose a different approach. They sabotaged the Raiders' communication systems, disrupted their supply chains, and freed prisoners. Then they left, making it look like internal conflict. The report's conclusion explained why. Complete destruction would force the raiders to scatter and rebuild in unknown locations. Current strategy maintains pressure while keeping them visible and manageable. They were hurting them, Lyra whispered. The humans were keeping the raiders contained where they could watch them. Now, with the humans gone, the raiders had no one hunting them. They could operate freely, and they were making up for lost time. Lyra printed everything. She needed to show this to the council. They needed to understand what humanity had really been doing all these years. In the council chamber, an emergency session was underway. Counselor Vexter stood at the center platform, trying to maintain order as dozens of species shouted questions and accusations. "My colony is defenseless," one delegate cried. "Where are the protection fleets you promised?" Another demanded. Silence. Vexter's voice boomed through the speakers. "The council is implementing new security measures. We are adapting our strategies." "We had security measures," someone shouted back. They were called humans. The chamber erupted in argument. Some agreed. Others insisted that accepting human help would be weakness. Many just wanted someone to blame. Lyra burst through the chamber doors, her arms full of documents. "Counselors, you need to see this." Security tried to stop her, but she flew over their heads, her wings carrying her to the speaking platform. She dumped the reports on the display table. "These are from the human archives," she said breathlessly. "They warned us. For decades, they warned us about the raiders. We ignored every report." "Old news," Vexter said dismissively. "We're aware that—" "No, you're not," Lyra interrupted, pulling up the classified operation reports. "Look at this. Look at what they were really doing. Well, we slept safely. Human soldiers were dying in secret to keep the raiders under control. They never asked for glory. They never even told us what they were doing because they knew we wouldn't believe them." The chamber fell silent as the reports played on the main screen. Images of human teams in combat, rescue operations, intelligence gathering. Battle after battle fought in the shadows. One counselor, an elderly being named Theron, spoke softly. "Why didn't they tell us?" "They did," Lyra said, her voice breaking. "We just didn't listen." Vexter tried to recover. "This doesn't change anything. We can handle the raiders ourselves. We just need time to—" An alarm cut him off. A young officer ran into the chamber. "Counselors, long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet. It's the Void Raiders. They're heading straight for Nexus Prime." The room went cold. "How long?" Krathix demanded. 4 days, sir. Maybe 5, if we're lucky. Deploy the home defense fleet. Recall all available ships. Send distress calls to our allies." "Sir, the home defense fleet is already under strength. We pulled ships to cover other sectors. And our allies. They're dealing with their own pirate problems. Nobody can send help in time." Counselor Thorin stood slowly. "Then we have one choice. We must ask Earth for help." Vexter slammed his manipulator on the table. "We will not crawl back to them. We are the Galactic Council. We have survived for 10,000 years without humans. We will survive this. Will we?" Thorin gestured to the tactical display. "Look at what's happening. In 3 weeks, we've lost more ships than in the last 3 years. Our trade is collapsing. Our colonies are terrified. And now, an enemy fleet is coming to our capital world. Tell me, Vexter, how exactly will we survive?" "We'll fight," Vexter said. "With what?" Lyra held up another report. "According to our own records, our tactics haven't changed in 300 years. We've been using the same formations, the same strategies. Do you know why? Because the humans were doing all the real fighting. They adapted. They learned. They innovated. We just coasted on their success and called it our own superiority." Krathix looked at the countdown timer. For days, he thought about his family on Nexus Prime, his children, his mate, 2 billion innocent lives. "We need to vote," he said quietly. "All in favor of sending a formal request for aid to Earth?" Hands raised. Not many at first. then more. Even some who had voted against humans just weeks ago, all opposed. Vexler's manipulator rose. A few others joined him, but they were the minority now.
Oh.
The motion passes, Thurine announced. We will send a delegation to Earth. We don't have time for a delegation, Krathik said. It's 3 days' travel to Earth's border. We need an answer now. Then we broadcast, Lyra suggested. An open transmission? Let the whole galaxy hear it. Vexler looked like he might explode. You would humiliate us before the entire galaxy. Better humiliated than dead, Tharin said. Besides, we humiliated ourselves. This is just admitting it. The vote passed again. A message would be sent within the hour, but there was a problem no one had noticed yet. The delegation they had sent to Earth 3 days ago, trying to demand human assistance, had never arrived. Their ship had vanished somewhere in the neutral zone between Council and human space. On her patrol ship, Captain Okonkwo received an urgent message. Captain, we're picking up a distress beacon. Council vessel, diplomatic markings. Sarah looked at the coordinates. The ship was deep in Raider territory, surrounded by hostile vessels. They're under attack, her tactical officer reported. Multiple Raider ships. The Council vessel is badly damaged. Commander Roth looked at Sarah. We're not obligated to respond. No, Sarah agreed. We're not. She thought about everything the Council had done. Every insult, every dismissal, every time they had called humans aggressive or primitive. Then she thought about the scared people on that ship. Diplomats who were probably just trying to do their jobs. People who might have families waiting at home. Set an intercept course. Maximum speed. Tactical, prep all weapons. Comes, broadcast this on all frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Okonkwo of the Human Federation. Any Raider vessel that doesn't leave this sector in the next 5 minutes will be destroyed. Captain? Roth looked surprised. Sarah smiled grimly. We didn't leave because we stopped caring, Commander. We left because they wouldn't listen. Maybe now they will. The Vigilant and her sister ships accelerated toward the battle. Behind them, the rest of the human fleet watched and waited. In 4 days, the Raiders would reach Nexus Prime. The question wasn't whether humans would help. The question was whether the Council would finally learn to ask. Part 4. The Price of Pride? The UHSF Vigilant cut through space like a blade. Behind Captain Okonkwo, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for moments like this their entire careers. Raider vessels in visual range, the tactical officer announced. Count as 8 frigates surrounding 1 Council diplomatic ship. Psst. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Council ship was barely holding together. Its shields were down, hull breached in multiple sections, life support failing. Hail the Raiders, she ordered. The view screen crackled to life. A scarred face with 3 eyes appeared. Caxeron, the Raider leader, smiled with too many teeth. Well, humans. I thought you abandoned your Council friends. We did, Sarah said calmly. But we don't abandon people who need help. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, Caxeron laughed. You're outnumbered. 8 ships to your 3. I know, Sarah said. I almost feel bad for you. 20 seconds. The smile faded from Caxeron's face. You're bluffing. 10 seconds. You wouldn't dare start a war over it. Time's up. Sarah cut the transmission. Fire. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ships moved like dancers, their coordination perfect. Railgun rounds struck with surgical precision. Missiles found weaknesses in Raider shields that shouldn't have been detectable in 3 minutes. 4 Raider ships were disabled. 2 more were running. The last 2 tried to fight back, but found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Cease fire, Sarah ordered. Let them go. They'll spread the word. The surviving Raiders jumped to hyperspace, their damaged ships barely holding together. Sarah turned her attention to the Council vessel. Scan for survivors. Reading 70 life signs, the medical officer reported. Multiple species. Some critically injured. Send rescue teams. Get them aboard now. An hour later, Sarah stood in the Vigilance medical bay. The council delegates were being treated by human doctors. Many were unconscious. Others stared at their rescuers with expressions of shock and gratitude. One figure sat apart from the others, refusing treatment despite obvious injuries. Security Director Krathix looked smaller somehow, his proud posture gone. Sarah approached him. "Director, you should let the doctors. Why did you save us?" Krathix interrupted. His voice was rough with pain and something else. Shame. Sarah pulled up a chair and sat down, because it was the right thing to do. "Even after everything we said? Everything we did?" "Yes." Krathix looked at her with his yellow eyes. For the first time, there was no coldness in them. "I called your people primitive. I said you were aggressive and beneath us. I was wrong." Sarah nodded slowly. "Yes, you were. Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you defend yourselves when we insulted you?" "We did defend ourselves," Sarah said. "We left. We stopped accepting your treatment. Fighting would have made us feel better for a moment, but leaving made the point we needed to make. That you don't need us." "No," Sarah corrected. "That we deserve respect. There's a difference." Krathix looked away. "The Raiders are going to attack Nexus Prime. 2 billion people. My family is there. We picked up the fleet movements 2 weeks ago. You knew?" Krathix's eyes widened. "You warned us." "Yes. Your council filed our report and ignored it." "Of course they did." Krathix laughed bitterly. "We're very good at ignoring inconvenient truths, especially when they come from humans." A young medical officer approached. "Captain, we have a visitor from the council ship asking to speak with you." "It's Counselor Vexter." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. "Send him in." Vexter entered the medical base slowly. His insectoid body was burned and broken. One of his limbs was missing, replaced by a medical brace. He looked nothing like the proud counselor who had mocked humanity weeks ago. "Captain Okonkwo," he said, his translator making his clicks into words. "Thank you for saving our lives." Sarah said nothing, just watched him. Vexter continued. "I wish to... apologize for my words at the summit, for my actions. I was wrong about your species." "Why?" Sarah asked. "What changed your mind? Was it almost dying? Or was it realizing you need us after all?" Vexter's mandibles clicked in what might have been pain. "Both, perhaps, but also this." He gestured around the medical bay. "I've watched your people for the last hour. The way your medical team treats us. Not like enemies or inferiors. Just like people who need help. Your soldiers share their rations with our crew. Your engineers are already repairing our ship even though you could have left us here. This is not the behavior of an aggressive, primitive species." "No," Sarah agreed. "It's the behavior of people who learn from their mistakes. We had wars, Counselor. Terrible ones. We did horrible things to each other. But we learned, grew. We became better. That's what you couldn't see. You looked at our history and saw violence. We looked at our history and saw lessons." Back on Nexus Prime, analyst Lyra was still digging through records. She had found something else, something that made her heart sink. The humans had files on the Void Raiders' main fleet. Detailed analysis. Ship counts. Weapon capabilities. Tactical predictions. Everything the Council would need to mount a proper defense. The files had been sent to Council Military Command 6 months ago. They were sitting in an archive marked pending review, low priority. "We had everything we needed," she whispered. "They gave us everything, and we just ignored it." Her supervisor entered the room. "Lyra, the Council is preparing to broadcast a message to Earth. They want all our research on human contributions to be included. Can you compile it? All of it?" Lyra asked. "Sir, that's 300 years of data. Their contributions to technology, medicine, military operations, diplomatic missions, rescue operations. If I include everything, the Council will look foolish." Her supervisor finished. "Arrogant? Blind? Yes, we will. But that's the truth. And if we want humans to help us, we need to stop hiding from the truth." On the Vigilance Bridge, Commander Roth approached Sarah. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Nexus Prime. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. They're not even encrypting it." "Show me." The view screen changed. Counselor Theron appeared, looking tired and old. Behind him, the entire council sat in silence. "People of Earth," Theron began. "Members of the Human Federation. We come before you today not as superiors, but as fools seeking wisdom. For 300 years, you have served the galaxy with honor. You have protected us, helped us, and saved us countless times. In return, we treated you with contempt. We called you aggressive when you showed restraint. We called you primitive when you demonstrated sophistication. We called you inferior when you proved yourselves our equals in every way that matters." The old counselor paused, gathering strength. "Now we face a threat of our own making. The Void Raiders grow bold because you are no longer here to stop them. They attack our worlds because you are no longer here to defend them. In 72 hours, they will reach our capital. 2 billion innocent lives hang in the balance. Lives of people who never insulted you, never dismissed you, never thought themselves superior." Tharin looked directly into the camera. "We do not deserve your help. We know this. But we ask for it anyway. Not because we have any right to it, but because it is in your nature to help those in need. That is who you are. That is who you have always been. We were just too blind to see it." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. "Well," Commander Roth said finally, "that's something." Sarah thought about Ambassador Chen walking out of the council chamber. She thought about 300 years of trying to earn respect that should have been freely given. She thought about all the human lives lost protecting people who never said thank you. Then she thought about 2 billion innocent people on Nexus Prime, children, families, people who had nothing to do with the council's arrogance. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Sarah ordered. "It's time to go home and have a conversation." On Earth, in the human assembly, politicians and military leaders gathered to watch the council's broadcast. Some were angry. Some were satisfied. Many were conflicted. Ambassador Chen watched from the gallery. A young assemblyman approached him. "Ambassador, what do you think we should do?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "I think," he said slowly, "that we left to teach them a lesson. They've learned it. The question now is, what kind of people are we? The kind who say 'I told you so' and watch them fall? Or the kind who help them up and build something better together? What's your vote?" Chen smiled. "I vote for who we've always been. Not the people they thought we were. The people we actually are." In space, Captain Okonkwo received new orders. The message was brief. Return to Earth. Full fleet mobilization authorized. "We're going back. But this time, we're going as equals." Sarah looked at Counselor Vexther, still sitting in her medical bay. "Counselor, you're about to see what humans do when someone actually asks for our help. I hope you're ready." "Ready for what?" Vexer asked. Sarah's smile was fierce. "To see what we're really capable of when we stop holding back." Part 5. Respect earned the human assembly chamber on Earth was filled with voices. Some angry. Some cautious. All loud. "They insulted us for 300 years. Senator Rodriguez shouted. "Why should we save them now?" "Because 2 billion innocent people will die if we don't," Admiral John countered. "People who never voted to treat us badly, children, families, regular citizens. That's not our problem anymore," another voice called out. We withdrew. We made our point. Ambassador Chen stood up from his seat in the gallery. The room gradually fell silent. Everyone knew his story. He was the one who had walked out, the one who had said enough. "May I speak?" Chen asked. The assembly speaker nodded. Chen walked down to the floor slowly. He looked tired but determined. "We left because we deserved respect. We left because we were tired of being treated like children. We left to teach them a lesson. The question before us now is simple. Have they learned it?" He pulled up a hologram. It showed the council's broadcast. Counselor Theron, honest words. His admission of guilt. His plea for help. They have learned, Chen said quietly. They understand now. They know what we did for them. They know what they lost. So now, we have a choice. We can be the people they thought we were: aggressive, petty, vengeful, or we can be the people we've always told ourselves we are. People who help. People who protect. People who do what's right, even when it's hard. They don't deserve our help, Senator Rodriguez said, but his voice was softer now. No, Chen agreed. They don't. But the 2 billion people on Nexus Prime do. The children in schools do. The families sleeping in their homes do. They're not responsible for the Council's decisions. And if we let them die to make a point, then we become exactly what the Council accused us of being. The room was silent. I vote we help them, Chen said. Not because they deserve it, but because it's who we are. However, I also vote that we establish new terms. Real partnership. Real equality. If they want our protection, they need to treat us as equals. No more junior species. No more conditioning our help on their approval. We help as partners, or not at all. Admiral Zhang stood. I second that motion. My fleets are ready to deploy. But we go in as equals, or we don't go at all. The vote was called. It took 20 minutes. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Earth would help. But everything would change. 40-8 hours later, the human fleet assembled at the border of Council space. Over 300 ships, every vessel that could be spared. Every crew that volunteered, and they all volunteered. Captain Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, now the flagship of the relief force. Next to her stood Counselor Vexther, recovered enough to travel but still bearing his injuries. That's a lot of ships, Vexther said quietly. This is about a quarter of our military, Sarah replied. The rest are protecting human space and civilian populations. A quarter? Vexther's mandibles clicked in surprise. We thought. The Council believed you had maybe 100 warships total. Sarah smiled. You believed what you wanted to believe. We never hid our strength. You just never bothered to look. The comms officer spoke up. Captain, we're receiving transmission from Nexus Prime. It's Admiral Krathix. He's asking for tactical coordination. Put him through. Krathix appeared on screen. He looked exhausted but professional. Captain Okonkwo, our defense fleet is in position around Nexus Prime. We have 72 ships. The Raider fleet is significantly larger, Sarah said. We've been tracking them. They have about 300 vessels, but most are poorly armed converted freighters and captured military ships. Real warships? Maybe 80. Still dangerous, but not impossible. Did you want to coordinate? Krathix asked. Sarah brought up a tactical display. First, we need to establish something. Admiral, are you asking for our help, or are you asking us to follow your orders? Krathix was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm asking for your help, Captain. It's equals. I'm asking you to work with us, not for us. Good answer? Sarah's smile widened. Then here's what we're going to do. Your ships know the local space better than we do. You take defensive positions around the planet. Create a layered shield. My fleet will engage the raiders before they reach you. We'll thin their numbers, disrupt their formation. When they hit your defensive line, they'll be disorganized and weakened. Then we hit them from behind. Hammer and anvil. That puts you at the most risk, Krathix said. Sarah agreed. That's what we do. But here's the thing, Admiral. We're not doing this alone. Your ships need to hold that line. If you break, we're all dead. Can you do that? Krathix straightened. We will hold. Then let's show these pirates why the Council and humanity together are stronger than either of us alone. The Raider fleet arrived on schedule. Caxaron sat on his command ship, watching the sensors with satisfaction. The Council's defense fleet was small, their formation defensive. It would be easy. Then his sensor operator spoke up. Lord, we're detecting additional ships. Human signatures. A lot of them. How many? 300 plus, Lord. They're moving to intercept us. Caxaron felt ice in his veins. They came back? But we thought they're hailing us, Lord. Captain Okonkwo's face filled his screen. Caxaron, remember me? The human from before. Caxaron growled. You're making a mistake. This is a council matter. Wrong, Sarah said. This is a piracy matter. You're criminals. We're law enforcement. It's pretty simple. You have one chance to surrender. After that, we stop being nice. Caxaron laughed, but it sounded nervous. You're outnumbered. Am I? Sarah's smile was cold. You have 300 ships. Most are junk. We have 300 ships. All are warships. You have untrained pirates who've been bullying defenseless merchants. We have professional soldiers who've been hunting people like you for 300 years. The math doesn't favor you, Caxaron. We'll see. Caxaron cut the transmission. All ships. Attack formation. Target the humans first. The battle that followed would be called the Nexus Prime Defense. It would be studied, analyzed, and remembered for centuries. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Their coordination was perfect. Their tactics were devastating. Where raider ships expected chaos, they found disciplined fire. Where they expected fear, they found determination. Sarah watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Tactical, target their command ships first. Cut off the head. Helm, pattern Eco 7. Keep us moving. Round her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this. Every exercise, every simulation, every patrol had prepared them for this moment. On Nexus Prime, citizens watched the battle on every screen. They saw human ships dancing through space, their weapons precise and deadly. They saw raider vessels breaking apart under sustained fire, but they also saw human ships taking hits, taking damage to protect council vessels, sacrificing themselves to cover retreats. One human destroyer, the UHSF Defiant, moved between a raider dreadnought and a damaged council cruiser. The destroyer couldn't possibly survive the exchange, but it bought the council ship time to escape. As the Defiant broke apart, escape pods launched. Other human ships swept in to recover the survivors, never breaking formation. Admiral Krathix watched from his flagship. They're protecting us, he said in wonder. Even now, even after everything, they're protecting us. That's what they do, his first officer said quietly. That's what they've always done. The raider fleet began to collapse. Their formation broke. Their commanders panicked. Some tried to flee. Others tried to surrender. A few fought to the bitter end. When the hammer and anvil strategy came together, when the human fleet drove the raiders into the council's defensive line, it was over quickly. The remaining raider ships were either destroyed or captured. Caxaron's flagship tried to escape. Captain Okonkwo's ship pursued. All ships, let him go. Track him. I want to know where their main base is, Captain. Commander Roth looked confused. We're not just winning a battle today, Commander. We're ending a war. Let him lead us to the rest of them. 3 days later, after the last raider vessel was neutralized, a ceremony was held on Nexus Prime, not in the council chamber, but in a public square, where everyone could see. Ambassador Chen stood next to Counselor Thorine. Around them were representatives from both humanity and the council. Human soldiers in dress uniforms, council delegates in ceremonial robes. But most importantly, there were regular citizens. Thousands of them. They filled the square and the streets beyond. Today, Thurin began, we sign a new treaty. Not the treaty we had before. Not a treaty of conditional cooperation and measured assistance. Today, we sign a treaty of equals. A treaty of true partnership. Chen stepped forward. For 300 years, humanity sought acceptance. We tried to prove ourselves worthy of joining you. We were asking the wrong question. We should have been asking if you were worthy of joining us. Today, we start over. As equals, as partners. As friends who have earned each other's respect through fire and blood, the treaty was displayed on massive screens. It was simple and clear. Both sides had equal votes in council decisions. Both sides had equal representation. Both sides had equal respect. No more developing species. No more conditional acceptance. Just partnership. Vexter stepped forward. His injuries were still visible, but he stood straight. "I want to say something," he announced. His voice carried across the square. "I was wrong. I called humans aggressive. The truth is, they're the most peaceful species I've ever met. Not because they can't fight, but because they choose not to unless they must. They could have crushed us. Instead, they walked away. They could have let us die. Instead, they saved us. They could have demanded we grovel. Instead, they asked only for respect." He turned to face the human delegation. "We called ourselves civilized while acting like barbarians. We called you primitive while you demonstrated wisdom. I am ashamed. My species is ashamed. We will spend generations trying to earn the trust you gave us freely." Captain Okonkwo stood with her crew. "You don't have to earn it, counselor. You just have to remember it. Remember that respect flows both ways. Remember that age doesn't equal wisdom. Remember that every species, no matter how young, has something to teach." The crowd erupted in cheers. Human and alien voices together, a sound that had never been heard before. True unity. Later, in a quieter moment, Ambassador Chen and Counselor Vexter shared a drink in a small cafe overlooking the city. The repairs were already beginning. Human and council engineers working side by side. "Tell me," Vexter said, "when you walked out of the council chamber that day, did you know we would almost die before learning our lesson?" Chen sipped his tea. "I hoped you'd learn faster. But yes, I knew it would take something dramatic. Pain is often the best teacher. Do you regret it? The people who died while we learned?" Chen was quiet for a long time. "Every day. But I also know that more would have died if we'd stayed. Your dependence on us was growing. Your ability to defend yourselves was atrophying. Eventually, something would have happened that we couldn't fix. Better to face the hard truth now than catastrophe later." "You're wiser than you look, human," Vexter said, with what passed for a smile. "And you're smarter than you acted," Chen replied. "You learned. That's more than many species ever do." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset. One of Nexus Prime's 3 suns was setting, painting the sky in colors that existed nowhere on Earth. "What happens now?" Vexter asked. "Now," Chen smiled. "Now we find out what we can build together when we actually try. No more testing. No more proving. Just working together as equals. I'm curious to see what we can accomplish." "The galaxy won't know what hit it," Vexter said. "No," Chen agreed. "They really won't." Above them, human and council ships patrolled together. Below them, people of dozens of species walked the same streets, no longer separated by imaginary hierarchies. Around them, a new future was being built. It had taken 300 years. It had taken pain, death, and nearly losing everything. But finally, humanity had what they'd always deserved. Not acceptance. Not tolerance. Not conditional approval. Respect. And in return, they gave the same. Not because they had to, but because that's who humans were. That's who they'd always been. The Council had just needed to learn to see it. In the dark spaces beyond known space, other civilizations watched. They saw what happened when humanity was pushed too far. They saw what happened when humanity decided to help. They took notes. They made plans. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans weren't dangerous because they were aggressive. They were dangerous because they were patient, kind, and forgiving right up until the moment they weren't. And when they stopped being those things. When they finally drew a line and said no more, entire civilizations had to relearn how to survive. But more importantly, the galaxy learned what humans could accomplish when treated with respect. The innovations that followed. The prosperity that grew. The problems that were solved when human creativity was unleashed alongside Council. Wisdom? It turned out that humanity wasn't the galaxy's problem. They were the galaxy's solution. Someone just needed to stop being afraid of them long enough to figure that out. The new era had begun, not with humanity conquering the stars, but with humanity standing among the stars as equals, hand in hand with those who had finally learned to see them clearly. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.